Hello and welcome to the Open News. In today's episode we're going to be covering everything from Linux 4.16 being scheduled for release this week to Google beginning to crack down on Google apps on unauthorized devices. All that and more right now on Linux Lounge. Well, first up we have this. Linus Torvalds says new Linux lands next week and he's sticking to that for now. Well, it would seem the new update to the Linux kernel has been scheduled for release this Sunday. Now, it's great to see the new update's development is coming along well after the troubles with 4.15. Now, as for what this update actually adds, well, a lot of driver updates for, GPUs, networking, media boards, and that sort of thing. Patches for Meltdown and Spectre for non-x86 platforms, networking improvements, and some other stuff. So all in all, a little bit for everyone. But either way, I just hope this release turns out well after, 4.15. Well, next up we have this. Linux Mint announces MintBox Mini 2, tiny desktop PC with Intel inside. Well, this is interesting. The guys over at Linux Mint have just announced a refresh of the MintBox Mini. Now, I'll admit to never having owned one of these things, as great as they do look. But it's brilliant that more PCs are available with Linux out of the box, especially ones that fill niche markets like the extremely small, micro desktop PC market. Now, this thing is insanely small judging by the picture. The specs are really impressive for the size and price as well. You get 4 gigs of RAM, or 8 if you go with the Pro model, 64 gigs of solid state storage, or 120 if you go with the Pro model, an Intel Celeron processor in both models as opposed to the AMD CPUs used in the previous MintBox model, and integrated graphics for both models. All in all, it's no gaming PC or anything, but it's plenty for most tasks. Actually, I can even imagine you'd probably be able to run some higher end software like, GIMP or Arcade Live or something acceptably well. As for other features, well, this thing has no fans or movable parts, so should, in theory, be quiet and long lasting. As for the price, $299 for the standard model and $349 for the Pro model, so not too bad. But either way, I look forward to some reviews of this thing coming out because I would really love to see where this thing goes. It seems like, sort of a brilliant refresh. And finally, we have this. Google apps now blocked from uncertified devices, but custom ROMs still okay. Well, this comes across as slightly worrying to custom ROM users. Effectively, what's happening here is Google blocking the installation of their apps from uncertified devices, which for one may stop a few smaller companies using GApps, which is a problem in itself. But the more concerning bit is Google are now showing a warning screen to custom ROM users, forcing them to register their devices with Google in order to use the GApps. Now, this bothers me as it shows Google recognise that people use GApps on custom ROMs and want to do something about it. Now, this may well be nothing, and I hope it doesn't turn into a problem. But I honestly can't help but feel this may well turn out poorly. Perhaps Google may even eventually start blocking custom ROM users from using their software. They wouldn't be the first software company to do that. Now, you may think that that's all absurd. Why would Google stop people from using custom ROMs? Well, apparently it's actually against Google's rules towards sideloading their apps. So, it's not out of the question that they would block people from using GApps on custom ROMs. Honestly though, this doesn't really affect me and many other Linux users since I stopped using GApps a long time ago, and I'd advise anyone who's watching this that uses a custom ROM to do much the same and avoid problems with this later on down the road. But anyway, with that said, if you want some more information, I will have a more in-depth video in the description. Well, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please consider clicking that little bell icon to get notified of future Open News episodes. And with that said, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.